Hey, Simply Tasty friends. I'm so excited to share another episode of Behind the Bites. Hi, Chef Michael Lee.
Welcome to Behind the Bites. I have been a longtime fan of M Sushi and M Pocha, so I'm super excited to dive into this. Um, Going back to the beginning, I'd love to hear a little bit about where you grew up, what food looked like in your household growing up, and kind of how that influences the way that you cook today.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I immigrated from South Korea when I was 10. So 2 years before the Olympics in South Korea, that was a pretty big deal in our country. That kind of like helped set things in motion for like modernization and everything as well. So yeah, so I remember watching Olympics on the rental VHS tapes because there was no internet back then, obviously. But yeah, we grew up in a lot of rural parts of America. So I think the first place we landed was Oklahoma City. It's not that rural right now, but it still was back in the days, even though it's kind of like the capital city of Oklahoma. We didn't, obviously I was 10 years old in South Korea, so we didn't have any English program back then.
Mm.
They do now, but so we stayed at Oklahoma City with our uncle and aunt who were nurses in the hospital and learned English the best we can for 6 months. uh, and then we moved over to Washington, Missouri. It's about hour and a half west of St. Louis. It's middle of nowhere. Definitely no Asians. um, and we got dropped off in school. My parents didn't speak English. We didn't because 6 months is not enough to learn anything really.
Yeah.
And they didn't have, especially in the rural area, but any school back then, I think they didn't have any kind of like a program where, oh, here's an international student that had, speech or language barrier. Like a lot of the school days, they do have that program. So they were shocked and didn't know what to do. And we didn't know what to do. So I remember we had to walk like 40, 50 minutes to school. And we got lost every single day. My parents had an odd job because they had to give up their career. And,
Mm.
when they moved us to immigrate to the United States, it was for better education because South Korea is very intense on education. And
Right.
you might have heard like it's probably one of the highest places for like suicide rates
Mm.
because it's so competitive. Um, so with that said, my parents dropped their jobs and they had to work in a factory where they had to wake up at 4 a.m. and came back home around 6 p.m. So with that said, they worked straight 10 hours, but no, me and my older brother, he's 2 years older than me. He's 52 and I'm 50 this year. And we had to basically just figure it out. And we didn't know what was going on.
Right.
So, and we actually, that's one of the reasons like we started cooking at home ourselves. Even when I was 10 and he was 12, we actually started, we had to make our own food or we had to at least prepare it ourselves. They would get the basic items in the fridge and they would tell us how to warm it up. So we kind of grew up from the very beginning, kind of like preparing food for ourselves. And, leading up to 4 years later, when I was 14, my English got a little bit better, and then I was able to, back in those days, with the parent signature, you can work at a restaurant, like fast food. So my first job was flipping burgers when I was 14 or 15 years old at Sonic Hamburger.
Oh, cool.
So that was my first job, and I got it for two reasons. One is to be able to, because my parents did not make a lot of money.
Hmm.
So whatever I wanted, if I wanted new basketball shoes, I had to work for it. And so, and the other reason was I had this crush on the girl in the school, and she was one of those servers at Sonic Hamburger that was on the roller skate. After that, I always had a job. I would mow lawns at the country clubs. And it was a little bit of an embarrassing moment because all the other kids, they have, wealth in their family. They started playing tennis when they're young. I just picked it up like a year ago and somehow made the team. But I knew, all the kids were making fun of me because after every tennis lessons at the country club, which they sponsored at high school, I stayed behind while all the other kids were enjoying lunch and mowing lawn
Got it.
around the tennis courts and the golf club facility. But it was a good experience. I think all of that like taught me like like the value of like money in life and just work for everything. My freshman year in college was back in 95. I was actually a computer science major too. I was double major,
Oh,
computer science and computer engineering. But I had a job even from freshman year in college. I worked at a local Japanese restaurant, which started this all. So I started working as a server the first year in 1995, and by the end of the year, because I had a lot of decent like knife skills because of cooking at
mm,
home all the time,
mm,
the chef actually started teaching me how to make sushi and hibachi, like the teppanyaki where they cook in front of you. So
mm.
by end of 95, I actually was full-blown cook at a Japanese restaurant making sushi as well. And after only like 6 months of training, which I wasn't good back then, but it was it was good enough apparently at that time. So that's how it got really started. And throughout my college year until I was senior, I always worked pretty much full time at the restaurant too. By my senior year, I had a chance to kind of intern at IBM, and something just told me like, I'm not just, this is I didn't enjoy it.
Mm.
I actually enjoyed working at the restaurants, even though it was grueling and it was a lot of hours. I was tired, I had to study like overnight and things of that nature. But I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I just made a crazy call that time, my senior year, with one semester left to drop out
Wow.
and just officially start my restaurant career.
Wow.
So my parents was not happy at all. Old school Asian parents they'll try to kill you when you tell them
I
that.
can imagine.
My father was a scary dad growing up, not anymore, but he was a nice dad. But my entire father's side was all Marines. And I had my car at the time. I had a Honda Civic. I loaded up everything that I thought I needed into my car, and before I told him about it, so that I could just like go right away. And obviously, it was like a shock. And now that I think about it, I'm just glad that they didn't have a heart attack. But so I told him, they stayed silent, and I think they kind of got the point because I loaded up my car and I had my plan laid out. I'm going to go to
Hmm.
LA, California, Arizona, and certain restaurants kind of to start my journey. And I told them, I'm going to save my money and I'm going to send it to them so that they can save it for me. And I'm not going to blow everything, so you don't have to worry about that. And I told them, this is like I'm burning my ship, if you will, like the book. The Art
Hmm.
of War. So I told him like, there's no looking back. I know I'm finished. I only have one semester, so I'm giving up a lot of stuff. So I told him I'm gonna really work hard and make it work.
I can imagine that like the whole journey just like built up so much resilience in terms of like dealing with challenges, and it sounds like you like made a way for yourself. Um and I'd imagine that there are a lot of challenges to running your own restaurant, just as there are to when you're starting out working somewhere else. I was listening to one of your interview or reading one of your interviews with Discover Durham, and I remember you mentioned that like when you started M Sushi, you wanted to do high-end sushi in Durham, but there were no vendors that were selling that high quality sushi. And so like I'm curious how you work through challenges like that. Like what was the process like to find vendors for that? And how did you just like make it happen?
Yeah, great question. I mean, well, yeah, I'm kind of proud to tell that version. I mean, that story because like at the time, like I am still, but like I was really gung ho, and I just like I still had that mentality because my when I started M Sushi in 2016, I've already kind of failed multiple times in a manner, different sense. My
Mm,
first restaurant was actually in Raleigh, 2007, and I had a business partner back then, and we didn't have a good synergy. I was passionate about food. He was passionate about the dollar, and it's not a bad thing. Business person has to care about money as well. But it was just hard because, as you probably remember, 2008 it was a big market crash. So we opened our restaurant that year. So it was very, very difficult. I just got married. I got married after about a year or two into the restaurant, and we were not making money. We were just barely breaking even.
Mm.
I couldn't cash my own personal salary check for about a year because if I cash my check, rest of my staff couldn't cash their check. Our son was born in that time frame too, and we really literally I think lived off of like $1,500 a month, including like eating and everything. And like we lived in a small one-bedroom apartment. We went through a lot of difficult parts before that, M Sushi came about.
Right.
And it started getting a little better after about 4 years. And up until that time, I literally worked like 80, 90 hours a week. Um, and, every time I had to eat outside, I remember I always had a pocket full of like dollar menu coupons. So that was what I kind of lived off of. And so about 2014, and that's when I finally realized like, hey, this is not going to work out. This guy has a totally different vision than me. It's not right or wrong, but he has to go separate ways, and I have to. So we decided to sell the first restaurant we had together,
Wow.
and I was in the market to look for another restaurant. But after we paid off the debt and everything, we didn't have that much left. Definitely not enough to start a restaurant, but we got very fortunate. And met the great friends and a landlord now of the M Sushi, the Holland Street building, and we were able to start that off at a very, very low cost and pay back and maximize our credit cards and everything. But it was a very thin thread that we made that happen,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when my wife and I started working together because we didn't have a business partner, so I didn't have to worry about that. And I think she was like the kind of like the key for having an extra like a boost to me and the restaurant too. So she's 100% responsible for the success as well. But that's kind of like background story. And then what we wanted to create something different. We don't at the time the buy one get one free sushi was booming. It still is now,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different style. Like you have different levels of burgers, steakhouses, Italian restaurants. You can go to a special Gucciolo or Gocciolina, and one day you can be economical. Go eat at Olive Garden with all you can eat salads and bread. I
Mm-hmm.
remember I definitely took advantage of that when I was younger.
Right.
So I don't think, it's like this is right and this is wrong. It's just
Mm-hmm.
different set. And we really wanted to kind of like every sushi restaurant back then had the same stuff. It was a frozen sako tuna block. Once in a while they had a big eye tuna,
Yeah.
salmon, and then yellowtail, and that's about it. Everything else was like frozen. And
Wow.
so it was very limited. Every sushi restaurant
Mm-hmm.
you go to, it's pretty much the same except just quality of the rice, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
But we really wanted to do something different. So we try to reach our local vendors, but there's no money in it. There's still less money in it now compared to them selling frozen items
Right. That
because too much logistics of food going bad, etc. If you can
mm-hmm.
imagine, like and in a grocery store, like your fresh produce and seafood, you make a lot less money on those side compared to your dry goods and frozen because they're like kind of like they're kind of set. They don't go
Mm-hmm.
bad.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So we had so started looking at everywhere. Like I contacted the place I used to deal with fresh fish program in California, but it was too far away.
Mm.
So I contacted somebody in New Jersey, New York, Manhattan, and finally found somebody in Jersey that was willing to ship it. But the problem was that I'm buying it at the New York's price where the New York restaurants can, their omakase these days are what, 400 or 500 a person.
Yeah.
So we're buying that fish and paying more to get it shipped over to me. So essentially, I was getting this really good fish that the top restaurants in Manhattan used, but I was paying freight shipping on top of that. So I was paying more than those restaurants in North
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, where I had to sell them at a fraction of the price.
Right.
Also, it was way too much to get it delivered in front of the door. So I had to get it shipped freight and then pick up the fish twice every morning, 6 a.m. at the RDU airport.
Wow.
And so I did that for about a good couple of, 2, 3 years, like twice a week because we say, Durham restaurants are 5 day week work week.
Mm-hmm.
So we picked up fish on Tuesday morning and Friday mornings. And, there was no return system because that was part of the deal. They say like they can't do that
Wow.
because of the shipping. So if the certain fish was not good enough, it was just a waste. So the first few months was kind of hard. I mean, the lucky thing was that we were fortunate that the business picked up pretty quickly,
Hmm.
and everybody thought we were making a lot of money, but like they didn't realize like how much our food cost was.
Right.
But it kind of we knew that was going to happen. We knew we weren't going to make like money like Shiki Sushi or other restaurants in the area that it's busy and they're making like millions a year.
Hmm.
We can't do that at M Sushi. We can't do that even now.
Right.
Even though M Sushi Durham is very bustling and busy, even during the weekdays, we
Hmm.
don't make $1 million at the restaurant. Like, other places like they sell, whether it's chicken sushi or like other, I don't, well, maybe we should name those people, but these places that use lesser quality and
Hmm.
cheaper, but they also sell it for like a discount price.
Right.
Sometimes they make a lot of money. Some of these, without naming the name of the restaurant, they'll make multiple millions a year.
Hmm.
We do not. We can't break that $1 million mark no matter what, because of the food costs alone, and
Hmm.
also our staff too. I like to pay all my staff very fair, and I give them like everybody a raise every single year, even if the restaurant is going down a little bit, like last year due to the tariffs.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of cost involved, but back to the answering your original question, like what we best mindset was like do whatever it takes, make it good, even the margin is very very slim. Let's do something different and special. I don't want to just like make do something just for to make money. And we were able to save money because I was there with just three other cooks at the time, and my wife saw everything in the front. She ran it, and we managed an entire restaurant with very minimal staff in the beginning.
Hmm.
And our kids actually grew up in our office in dry storage because we couldn't pay for like child support or not child support, but nannies or anything of that nature.
Hmm.
So they actually grew up in our restaurants. But we wanted to do something different, drastic, and only option at the time was we couldn't just order things off of Amazon. Like I wish that was easy. We had to pay a lot more compared to restaurants in New York and charge a lot less. Even though we're still known as like not cheap. I mean, the food cost is like really still high these days, even though it's gotten better. But the recent years, we can thank our president for that, for the tariffs.
Yeah. I mean, was there ever a moment that you considered not continuing with such a low margin like item and deciding that you wanted to?
No, I think we kind of set that in the beginning so that we
Mhm.
can. I like to like make myself like have a goal or promise to say something so that I can keep my word. And
Mhm.
our goal from the very beginning was, money is important, but there are ways. But I'm not going to sacrifice what I can do. And
Right.
at that time, our focus was to do the best that we can, no matter what. And after the restaurants getting packed, and we're starting to make a little bit of profit and paying back our credit cards, it's gotten better. Thankfully,
Mhm.
because we started doing that back then, no one else was using those fish
Right.
and the ingredients. Now, even now, we go pretty far still. We every day these days we still continue to look for ways to improvement. Like we are getting our sushi rice directly from Japan shipped and then get it freshly milled in New York and then shipped to us, which makes it 3 or 4 times more than just buying
Mhm.
the best sushi rice you can, which is plenty good enough.
Right.
But it would just go that little extra effort to make continue to like improve. And I think we will always be that way, and we always have been. We want to be proud of like what we're serving and not lie. Just saying that we're getting the best product that we can. And every sushi restaurant or restaurant is going to say that no matter what,
Right.
whether they're serving tilapia or high quality Japanese and Malay, and say, oh, this is the best. But we want to be true to ourselves and be proud. And it has paid off in the over the course of 10 years since we started M Sushi. Um, we may not make much as money as like other restaurants that are in the same category, but we're more.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you've spoken a little bit about like challenges that you've overcome in the past. And I'm curious, is there anything you're working to solve right now um, with your restaurant?
I think everyday challenges, the most important thing is our staff, the people who we work with. So um, I would say the biggest challenge is that we have more restaurants and, we have, locations to carry as well and opening another restaurant in a couple of months.
Hmm.
It's I'm losing a little bit of that personal touch with every single people. That it's like over 100 people, whereas back in the days, we were like having lunch together every single day, and it was more close knit, family environment. And it's still a good working environment, but I just miss that a little bit. But I also know that if we're going to grow, and our growth is not because of I want to make more money or open restaurants more. I actually don't want to. Me and my wife, we do not want more restaurants. That's something that people don't think like they understand. We don't like opening more restaurants. We were happy with one.
Mm.
So one thing, and us doing this, our seventh restaurant is not because of our greed. It's like I felt compelled, like as a Korean doing Japanese restaurants, that we really need a proper Korean restaurant in the area,
Mhm.
especially in Durham. Durham is kind of like Durham is our home. It's
Yeah.
where it happened, and it made the big life improvements for me and my family. So we're gonna always this is our route. And we always felt like any restaurants that you see, we opened in Durham especially, is not is carefully chosen to add to the culinary scene,
Mm.
not to overlap. I always tell my wife if we ever, go bankrupt, we just open a noodle shop or a pizza restaurant, which I like practice a lot. That actually makes more money and a little bit easier if you succeed. There's no, easier restaurant, but there's other options that we have thought about. But we're opening a restaurant that we have passion for, but also that contributes to the dining scene in the downtown Durham. So if you look at all the restaurants we have, they're not a copycat of anything,
Mhm.
or they're not similar to other genre. Like when we opened the Coco, it was actually supposed to be a full-blown ramen shop, a
Mhm.
small hole-in-the-wall ramen shop. But year before we got there, Dashi opened up ahead of us.
Wow.
And so we didn't want to just overlap to like
Right.
almost identical, even they were a much larger area. So that's why we changed the concept last minute. And in tempura, like there's no tempura omakase restaurants in the entire state easily.
Yeah.
Only one that I know of in the entire East Coast is in New York, Manhattan. Um, Tempura Matsui, which we love, and we visit there often, and we're good friends with the chef and the owner there. But yeah, so it's like the only one in the area. Pocha was like one of those things like we didn't have like casual Korean
Hmm.
or kind of like a Southeast Asian kind of influence.
Right.
So we felt we needed that, so that's why we opened that. And so every restaurant that we open, it has a reason,
Hmm.
not just because I want to open it. There's a lot of other, restaurant categories that I want to open, wanted to, not anymore. um, like I had a big passion for like Italian, like pastas,
Oh,
and I practiced pizza making for a very long time. But there's too many pizza restaurants and good pizza restaurants, and there's too many good Italians in there. It's just not needed. So
hmm.
that's why I don't do this. You'll notice that that's kind of like one of the reasons. Also, another big reason is for the growth of our staff. Staff wants to move. They don't want to be in that one spot or one position for all eternity. So they get hungry. They want to run it. They want to become chef, and then they want to become partners. So that's why we keep having to grow to give them opportunities. And if it was just up to me and my wife, like we would say no. Our version of retirement is to just have like a 12-seat restaurant, and we just run it between us, and the
Yeah.
other restaurants will likely be passed down to other people who has worked for us for like a long time.
Yeah. You mentioned like when you're starting a new concept, it's really like what Durham needs. Do you have a specific framework for thinking about like figuring out what that is or like a signal that you look for that'll be like, oh, this concept will work?
Yeah, well, it's fairly simple kind of simple strategy. Like my wife and I, we love eating food. We're fortunate now that we're able to travel to like New York, and we go to Korea and Japan every year. And we love eating, so we like to try out a lot of different restaurants, get inspirations, but also keep in mind like, oh, every time we think like, oh, we wish that this was in Durham. So that's kind of like the first phase. Then we ask ourselves, can we make it like, taste good and proper? Obviously, I can't make every single thing in the world. I don't, I wish I could, but I also like learning a lot. So if I fall into some category like pizza, I made like, pizzas every day, multiple times, learning about different flours and hydration levels and even sauces for like many years. And there's a point of time when our kids got sick of pizza. So I really dive in. So the second phase is like, first is like, oh, this would be nice to have in there. Second is, can I do it? Well,
Right.
I don't want to just open it and like just do a crappy job.
Mm.
And then I go into like this experiment and like learning phase. And if I think that it's good enough, when I think it's good enough, I want to be in my mind on good days, like on when we're on all cylinders, that it should be one of the best in that category in the area in the States. So if I'm not like confident enough to do that, I'm not saying we're every restaurant we're the best in the but when we're doing really good job of it, we're human beings, so restaurants are not always perfect every single day. But if we're able to hit our all cylinders and everything goes well, and I'm proud of that, then that's when I say, okay, then we can seriously consider looking for locations.
Mm. Yeah.
So we go through that three different phases where, I wish I had that in Durham. Can I do it? And then I try making it. And if I can, and I'm satisfied with it, and we move forward. And if I can't get to the point where it's like really, really uh, proper, then I move on from it.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's cool that like the spark comes from traveling and trying new things. I know you mentioned that the new one is going to be a Korean concept. I actually went to Seoul in the fall to visit my younger brother. He was studying abroad there.
Nice.
Um, and the Korean food was incredible, but it's a very diverse cuisine. So I'm kind of curious, like what's the process like for choosing what goes on that menu? Because you could pick so many different types of like Korean dishes.
Oh man, that's the worst part because like, there's so much we want to put on there, but to do
Right.
it properly, we can't, have a Cheesecake Factory menu.
Right.
If I can show you my list of things that I've tested and possibility for the menu, which I save on my note, it's crazy. It's like, probably like 150 dishes or something. So trying to pick some, like, maybe 15 items out of that, it's very hard. Even like today, I woke up in the morning, I edited one menu item and put something else in there. So it's a challenge for sure. But
Mhm.
ultimately, what we're trying to do is trying to pick dishes that we think that it's very traditional in flavors,
Mhm.
and we can interpret in a little bit more modern way without sacrificing the flavors. And something that Korean people will be taste and then they'll be proud of. Yet the clients and other customers who are not used to Korean food can still enjoy it.
Mhm.
So it has to fit all of that criteria, which still has a lot of menus. So at the end of the day, we just have to kind of decide and see what the customers will enjoy more.
Yeah.
And that's 50%. And the other 50 is like what I really want to show people. So I don't want it to be all like safe dishes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's not easy. That's probably one of the hardest part because like what to do. Definitely probably will have to reopen, change out the menu frequently to see
Mhm.
what the customers are liking and keep our staff on their feet. And they like that too. I like having staff who enjoys that pressure and challenge and learning new things. So almost all of our staff doesn't like stagnated menu. They all want to see like
Mhm.
changes. Every time I come into the kitchen, like in Sushi Durham last week, I told them like we're going to change a lot of the menus and update a lot of things. They're all excited, which is good.
Yeah,
I want them, yeah.
definitely.
So that keeps me on my feet, on my toes as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, you mentioned like you're catering to customers as well. And so I'm curious, like, has there been a dish that you've removed from a menu that you loved, but for whatever reason didn't work with the customer?
Oh, there's plenty. Yeah, there's a lot of those. There are plenty of dishes where I really wanted to work, but it just didn't sell or didn't move. It's unfortunate that's part of the job. There's like probably a whole book of those dishes. And it's one of those things like, we have to be adventurous, but we have to, at the end of the day, we're hospitality business. We're here to serve others. And, serving our own needs and, want has to come second. So there's not a big roundabout of that aspect of it. But we try in Durham, it's nice because customers actually listen more. They try to understand it. Compared to a lot of the other places I've been, they actually want something different instead of what they're always used to. So I think that sets Durham apart from the other towns and cities nearby.
Do you think Durham is like equally affected by food trends that affect the industry as a whole?
I think I would say like 50-50.
Okay.
We're definitely different. Durham's definitely different in that we get affected a lot less than other places, and I think that's really great and wonderful. But there's nothing 100%, right? So, and we still get affected a little bit, but definitely less than others. But I do see, it breaks my heart sometimes when I see restaurants that are amazing and they should be like bustling busy every day, but they're not, due to whether it's trends or things that we can't figure out. And that part is sad, but I think for the most part Durham is more shielded than other cities in our neighboring cities.
Interesting. And like, I'm curious, how have you seen the food industry change since you started M Sushi in 2016? And like, what are there any specific things that you've been like, oh wow, that's completely different? Or even from before when you started M Sushi?
Absolutely. I mean, when we first started our first restaurant in 2017, even in downtown Raleigh, there was nothing there. I mean, people
Wow.
don't understand if they take a picture of downtown Raleigh on Fayetteville Street or Glenwood, that area view, back in 2007. Only thing that was nearby that was doing good was the Chick-fil-A on Fayetteville Street. And then I think that was it. All
Wow.
the other restaurants. And then I think Chef William, he just opened up the Buku restaurant not too long after that. But that was about it. Like there was nothing there. People don't understand. Like you see
Right.
downtown Raleigh now. It's like almost semi-metropolitan, and like
Yeah.
so many. But when we were first there was nothing there. Again, the best business was a Chick-fil-A. It's grown so much over the years, and in a better manner. I wouldn't say like downtown Raleigh has gone a little bit too crazy for me. And downtown Durham, I think we need a little bit more constructive growth. We've been delayed a little bit. We had that kind of nice growth back in 2014 to 18, 19. And once COVID hit, we didn't really kind of pick up this, pace back up like some of the other cities like downtown Raleigh and downtown Cary. So,
Yeah.
we're constantly in it works about that. We meet with other landowners and like with the city councils and mayors, and we try to figure out as a group, what's halting our growth. Because
Right.
back then, a long time ago, Magnolia Grill and we came about, Mateo's, Matt Kelly's restaurants. It just got into a booming phase and it just kind of stopped. But we are definitely getting more restaurants in the area. But we're not just only talking about the restaurants, like the office workers being back, during the daytime. You see a lot more of that in other places like Cary and Raleigh. Durham is still a ghost town during daytime.
Right.
So there's a lot of work, I think, for us. I think we hit that growth spurt and kind of like plateaued and slowed down a little bit. But I think it needs to improve a little bit more moving forward. But the restaurant scene overall, it's gotten so much better in the Triangle and Durham as well, because we're seeing more and more people see this area as a destination to make a good living. You
hmm
know,
Right.
and so we're getting so much more talented chefs from outside coming in, and they're not just opening up a secondary franchise. You're coming here to actually open restaurants. And we're getting a lot more talent, higher standards for all the restaurants, which is great. We all have to like be on our toes and continue to evolve and improve. So that all of that is actually a very big improvement that we're a big culinary scene in the nation of you, and which is great. And we had James Beard Award prominent in this area, which is a nice thing. Is it helps a lot. People help being passionate about passionate and they're driven. And also the Michelin star too. They started coming in this area last year, which is I think great for the area. I might not be like personally like too fascinated, but at the same time I think it's wonderful for the culinary area, for the restaurant scene, because that's going to bring in more great restaurants, and then also be very competitive in a good
Right.
manner.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm super excited to see where it goes and how it evolves. I think there's like so many great restaurants in Durham, and I'm sure everyone is excited to see where they all go. But yeah, I guess we're running up on time, but thank you so much. This was incredible.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Behind the Bites. I'm so excited to see you next time. Bye.